Welcome, everybody. This is HR That Works President Don Finn, and this is the last webinar of 2013. And as many of you know by now, we've got a lot of long-time webinar attendees that regularly show up on these. In December, I try to do some more special type things. So we did the one talking about the importance of meditation and those types of practices in the workplace a couple of weeks ago. And today I'm bringing on JoAnna Brandy. And I learned about JoAnna through the Visage organization. It's that CEO group that I've spoken to now over 300 times, and JoAnna is one of their highest presenters as well. And I looked at her subject and I said, you know what, I'm seeing a lot of literature, a lot of books, a lot of things about happy, and everything from what's going on in Bhutan and to the books that have been written recently. And I said, let me find somebody who can present on that, because it's obviously striking a chord with everybody. So it's always nice to be in the right spot when people are talking about things. So JoAnna, welcome.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks for coming on with us today. And if you would be so kind as before you get rolling, give a little introduction to everybody.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, I've been in my own business since 1990. I kind of jumped my corporate ship around then. I'd been the Director of Direct Marketing Services, which was a division of CMP Media in New York. And there I developed a real passion for the customer. And it helped me build my little division into a multi-million-dollar profit machine. And I really loved working there. But, you know, after a while of being an intrapreneur, I started to get a little edgy and wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I actually called my customers and said, I'm thinking of jumping ship. I like what I do, but it's time for me to do something different. I was there 12 years. And I actually did something I've come to know now that I study positive psychology as a best self question. I asked my customers what I did best, and they absolutely stunned me. They said that what I did best was to take care of my customers. Now, I thought they were going to talk about how clever my... Or do we have you here, Don?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I heard a little click. I thought we were going to talk about my marketing, or you know, my great acumen with data, or my ability to get their numbers right. But what they really remembered was that I cared about them, and that I listened to them, and that I did things for them that other people simply didn't do. So I had just decided that I was going to delve into that. So I really began to realize that what they were talking about was the quality of the emotional connection that I made with them. So I set out to shift companies' thinking from customer service, which I saw as reactive, something that happens after something else goes wrong, to what I called customer care, a way of being that brings meaning to work and joy to other people. So that's what I've been doing for 23 years. And I use it as an acronym: create authentic relationships with energy and enthusiasm with everyone who interacts with us. So my Dare to Care admonition challenged companies to really rethink how they thought about customer relationships, and then make the changes that matter. And then 8 years ago, I got an email that changed my life, and I was invited to come to an introductory phone call that talked about a program that Dr. Martin Seligman, who is now known as the founding father of positive psychology, was running. He had just written a book called Authentic Happiness, and he wanted people in all walks of life to spread his message around the globe. So he offered a course called Authentic Happiness Coaching. And boy, that kicked off a passion in me around wanting companies, most especially, to look at what makes employees happy, because, Don, as you know, if you have happy employees, there's a higher likelihood the customers will be happier. So I began developing programs on creating happiness in business and programs on positive leadership, which is what this is going to be based on today. So that's the kind of leadership and the kind of culture that breeds that caring right into the DNA of the company. And all customer interactions begin with the employees and how they feel about how they are treated. So when their needs for, you know, things like appreciation, affection, belonging, accomplishment, and recognition are met, they generally blossom, as you so well know. And that really unearths a powerhouse of productivity and enthusiasm at work, and even happiness. So that's really what we're here to talk about today. I read a statistic years ago that made me very upset, and that statistic was that there were more heart attacks on Monday morning prior to 9 a.m. than any other time of the week. And that said to me, something's going wrong out there. Maybe people are unhappy about work. Now, the numbers are changing, actually, just slightly over the last few years. People are beginning to get happier and happier at work. The numbers aren't overwhelming yet. We're still tilting a little bit more towards the unhappy side, and of course the Gallup numbers reflect that. The Gallup organization tells us that less than 1/3 of the workforce is actually engaged in their work. So they're estimating that that disengagement, which in my mind comes from, I'm not feeling so happy, that disengagement is really responsible for indirect costs, about $506 billion in lost productivity. And that's just direct. The indirect stuff and some of the estimates are trillions of dollars in lost productivity because people are not happy or engaged in their work. So people that are unhappy in their work typically even take an extra 15 sick days a year. So, if you're happy and excited about coming to work, somehow I think you stay well as well. So even though, and I've been told this by so many, I work as you do with CEOs through Vistage. Even though I've had CEOs say to me, well, my employees' happiness is not my responsibility, and that's true. It's not your responsibility. Happiness is a personal choice. However, it is up to the organization to see that there's a great advantage to create the kind of working environment and use the kind of leadership practices that bring out the best in people. So while the folks in HR and the folks in the C-suite may say, yeah, it's not my responsibility, I agree. However, it's really, really, really to your advantage to take a look at how can we make this a better place to work? How can we help people feel good about their work and the contribution they work there? So in one of the most authoritative studies to date, and that of course is Gallup, 200,000 respondents in 8,000 business units show us that outcomes such as employee turnover, productivity, customer loyalty, and profitability are all influenced positively by the way managers address the issues of well-being and engagement. You mentioned a little bit earlier a webinar that you ran on meditation. I am beginning to teach my clients meditative practices because it gives them a small pause in the middle of their day to regroup so they're not constantly reacting. And we'll talk about that just a little bit later. There's no doubt that people are the competitive edge in business today. And when they feel good at work, they're more productive, they're more creative, they're more resilient, and they're more likely to achieve their goals. So as your official happiness coach for today, I am going to share 7 ways that you can use immediately to create happier, more engaged employees. And my opinion is that deliberately, and I think that's the key word here, deliberately creating happiness at work is a really bold and effective strategy for increasing productivity and, of course, my other favorite topic, customer loyalty. So I think that the enlightened leaders today really know in their hearts that happiness is what connects people to the soul of the business. And Harvard Business Review last January, it's a February issue, ran a whole issue on the value of happiness at business. And it was kind of funny. I was in the Palm Beach airport headed up to New York, I believe, or maybe out here last year in January, and I looked at the newsstand and I got a hold of this, and I had the biggest grin on my face. I was pretty happy that Harvard was writing about happiness, because when organizations turn their culture into a happier culture, every one of their business outcome improves. This is a picture of Sean Aker, who is the author of The Happiness Advantage and now a book called Before Happiness, which is terrific. And he believes that happiness is the single greatest competitive advantage in the modern economy. And I think that he's right, because a happy culture is really the soul of the business. It's based on the values, the beliefs, the norms, and the behavior. And truly, in a dispersed world like we work in today, where some people work at home and some people work overseas and some people work on the other coast, the culture is what people fall back on when there are no rules. So when we really deeply understand what the culture is and what the value is, it's much easier and actually much more efficient to run an organization. And the climate, the organizational climate, actually is responsible for 30% of an organizational financial results. So I think that's huge. And I think it bears talking about the fact that the kinds of things that I'm going to be talking about, some people call soft skills. And as soon as something is labeled as soft skills, they tend to get dismissed. So I just want to set the premise right up front that these quote-unquote soft skills really have hard results on the bottom line, very, very hard results on the bottom line. So the best cultures have these crystal clear ideas of what their vision is, where they're going, what we expect of people, what's rewarded, and what will not be tolerated. I work in a lot of organizations as a consultant, and I hear from people all the time, well, I don't know what's expected of me. So when there's that clear picture, it becomes much easier to get the job done. But creating that kind of culture requires both discipline and determination. And as I'm very fond of talking about, when we think about that word discipline, my goodness, so many of us think about punishment as opposed to something where we put our focus. So I like to break that word down and remind people that the word discipline comes from the word disciple. So when we are disciples of our own vision, when we are disciples of our own ideas of where we're going, why we're going there, and what's expected, it actually becomes a joy. Discipline can come from devotion when we really understand what we're here to do. So this is something that has to be deliberate, and it does involve a fair degree of determination and focus. And the best cultures today, as we look at it, they're focused on strengths. They're focused on allowing people to bring their best selves to work. They're focused on the emotional assets that people bring to work, not just the physical assets, but the emotional assets and skills that people bring in. And because we now have a science, and that science is called positive psychology, we used to say it was the science of happiness, but now we really understand that this science, which is only about 13 years old, this science is really the science of excellence. It's the science of optimum results. And there's a lot of, actually there's a lot of research behind it. There's a lot of money behind it in doing that research. And the scientists have discovered that in high-performing companies, there is a positivity to negativity ratio of 5 to 1. That means there's 5 times more of the good stuff than the negative stuff. 5 times more of that appreciation, 5 times more of that recognition and praise, 5 times more of that celebration than there is, oh, I'm going to go and fix somebody or work with their weaknesses. Not to say that we don't need to do that, but we need to give 5 times more of the positive stuff than the negative stuff. And yeah, it requires a little bit of hard work. The entire U.S. Army is using positive psychology now. Marty Seligman is actually working pro bono for the Army right now. And yeah, it's work, but this work that we're doing, this determination to create more positivity in our lives and our work is certainly worth it. 9 out of 10 people report being more productive in the presence of positive people. And if you think about it just from a common sense point of view, yeah, we all feel good when we're with other positive people. We all feel good when people see the best in us, and we work better. Scientists have taken a look at all the studies and found 225 studies tell us that happy employees produce more, 31% higher productivity, 37% higher sales, and they're 3 times more creative. And that's because the presence of happiness, the presence, in fact, of any positive emotion in our body has an effect on the brain called the broaden and build response that actually opens up us to more possibilities because the right hemisphere of the brain and the left hemisphere of the brain begin communicating better with one another. So we become more open and more expansive.
Hey, so can I interrupt just for a second here?
Sure.
JoAnna? A couple of things. First of all, you speak as fast as I do, so there's no way I'm getting a word in edgewise, so that's fine, okay? But I had to laugh when you talked about the Monday morning heart attack thing, because I always used to kid around and said squirrels don't get heart attacks on Monday mornings. You know, it's a uniquely human phenomena. But one of the things I think is so important about this, and we can talk about the productivity side, but a lot of the folks we have on today come from the risk management and HR community, and it's not just about productivity. It's about claims and risk. You know, happy people don't sue each other. You know, happy people don't rip off the company's data. You know, happy people don't justify. They don't have anything that upsets them to justify poor conduct.
Oh, absolutely. They don't steal things either.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very strong risk management component to it. You can have all your checklists and audits and stuff like that, but if you've got unhappy people, what good is an employee handbook with a bunch of unhappy people?
That's right. In the companies that I work with, and some of them have big safety issues. You know, they drive big trucks and do things like that. Safety levels go up when people are happier because, as you'll see, that this positive leadership is really about having respect for others, really about honoring the others and the best that we see in others. So we're not looking at people to see what they do wrong. We're looking at people to see what they do right so they don't feel victimized to start with. You bring up an excellent point there.
And remember, let me know when you want me to answer the polling question, okay?
Well, this is our first polling question. So
okay, there we go.
I'd be really interested to see how the people on the call would describe their culture. So how would you describe your culture as how happy it is? So 5 would be, well, we're happy about all the time. 4 would be, well, we're happy more than we're unhappy. 3 would be, half the time we're happy. 2 would be, well, we're unhappy more than not. And, of course, 1 would be, wow, it's really toxic around here.
Well, remember, as always, everybody, you've got 1 minute to vote. If you want your HRCI credits, you've got to vote. And it just as a side comment here, I noticed some of you folks, it says that you're not watching and you're just listening, which is fine unless you want your HRCI credits. And if that's the case, you have dual monitors, shut down one monitor. If you're on your Outlook or you're doing your last-minute Christmas shopping, you got to shut that down if you want those HRCI credits.
And Don, there may be some people from my list that are here to listen, and they don't need credits. So you might see that as well.
No, I just remind those folks who want their credits so they don't hear it from Dana later. You know.
I think it's so great that they can get credits for it. It's wonderful.
Okay, yeah, I'm always fighting with HRCI to get us credits for this pushing the edge type stuff. All right, so last second, I'm going to close it. We're going to share the results. And I don't know if you can see this, but it says...
I can't.
Okay, a lot of times the percentage can't, so let me share it with you. It says that 9% of people said 5 were happy all the time. Very good. People always want to know, where can I work for that company?
I know. Who are they?
Number 4, we're happy more than we're unhappy, 48%. That's really good.
Wow, fabulous. I just got a chill with that one. That's fabulous.
Number 3, half the time we're happy, 36%. Number 2, we're unhappy more than not, 5%, and we're toxic, 1%. So there you go. And I will now hide those results.
We have a fairly happy group on the phone, which is fabulous.
Well, I would think that we might attract that kind of group with this title.
I would think so.
Still catch 22 there, you know.
People never want to come. But that's great to know. That's really great to know. And there's and like anywhere else in life, there's a little bit of improvement, especially in that mid group there. You know, when Gallup tells us that less than 1/3 of the workforce is actually engaged in their work, the next level down is what they call simply disengaged, and that's 52%. So that I would liken to the group there, that third group there, that, you know, we're not, you know, half the time we're happy, half the time we're not. So these tools would be really helpful in moving you up to that next level, which is great.
I think you
So
can
thank
also
you
call
for
the.
participating.
I think you can also call those people zombies. So.
Oh no, those are the actively disengaged people.
No, okay.
So I'm going to suggest that we really can make new choices, because one thing that we have discovered, and Don made reference to at the beginning of the call, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of literature out there now. There's all kinds of books on happiness. New York Times, Sunday, this last Sunday, the cover of the first page of the Sunday Review, I have it here, is called A Formula for Happiness. Because there's so much research, we are learning so much about it. We're learning that it is, in fact, a choice. It's a process. It's a journey. It's not a place. It's not a place you go to and stay there. It's a practice. It's a work ethic. You know, it's a choice we literally make moment to moment. So we need to remember that we have the choice to do that. So I'm going to share with you my 7 ways, or 7 different things I'm going to give you here that you can put into practice. I would say go with the ones that resonate with you most, because those are going to be the easiest to put into practice. And maybe use this as we close out this year and begin a new year. Maybe use this as a way of making a to-do list, or even better, a to-be list for the new year. So the first one is give people opportunities to use their strengths, talent, and their skills. Give them a chance to do what they do best, to be in their strength zone, because they're more likely to be engaged when they're using their strengths than when they're not. And when I talk about engaged, I'm talking about showing up to work with purpose, with passion, and that sort of willingness to think about the company, to whether you're working or not on the weekend, be thinking about some vexing situation and allow your creativity to roam free and come in on Monday morning with an innovative idea. That's that connection. And I think that strength zone is where you're going to do it. Now, if you're not in the strength zone, this is pretty interesting. You're 6 times less likely to be engaged in your job. You're more likely to dread going to work, more likely to have negative attitudes and interactions, more likely to treat the customer poorly, and more likely to cause risk for the organization. So I think that's a really important thing to take a look at. The difference between, are my people the majority of the time using their strengths and in their strength zone, or the other way around. And I really think that makes sense, because when you have the chance to do it, you do best, you feel good about it. And you feel good about where you are. Sadly, when Marcus Buckingham, who does a lot of this research, asked the question, what percentage of a typical day do you get to play to your strengths? The last time I read one of his surveys, he said only 14%. So we have to start thinking about how can we get people into that strength zone more often. And, you know, we all get more of what we focus on. When we focus on people's weaknesses, they actually expand because it makes them feel bad. When we focus on people's strengths, they expand too. So these are the levers for getting people to be more engaged. And focusing on an employee's strengths gives them confidence, self-assurance. It increases their well-being. And positive psychologists have discovered and verified scientifically that when people identify their strengths and focus on improving even one of those strengths every week, over time their actual level of happiness goes up. So it seems that the more time people get to spend doing what they do well, the more likely they are to perform in ways that increase the organization's profitability and decrease their risk. So, important point. Second one is to provide challenge, stretch goals, and opportunities for advancement. Ongoing surveys by Career Systems International say that almost half, and I think it's like 48.5% of their respondents, claim that exciting work and challenge top the list of reasons for staying on a job. Second on the list is career growth, learning, and development. And I think people today are on the move. We have to accept that. They don't want a job they can have forever, but they do want a job that stretches them, a job that expands them, and a job that helps them move to the next level, whether that next level is with you or with someone else. So strengths-based doesn't mean ignoring weaknesses, but it means identifying and using those strengths to improve and expand in all areas. I believe that when our strengths meet our challenges at the far end of our comfort zone, we go into this positive state called flow. And when we're in that state of flow, and we all know what that is, that's when we lose track of time, we forget to eat lunch, we get into the zone. That's when we are really, really productive, and it's very beneficial for the body. So as we, as managers, help our employees make their comfort zones larger in this way, they become more and more capable, more and more competent, and they create more and more value for the organization. So I really believe that it's our job to take people out of their comfort zones into the stretch zone, and here's the key, without having to pass through the panic zone. So this means supporting them as they grow, giving them the opportunity to fail, giving them the support they need and the conversation they need to figure out what's going on and to be able to learn how to do things better and better over time. And I think that we really have to sit down and take time to help our employees find a career path in our organization, talk about their dreams and aspirations. And even in companies, I know we have a lot of entrepreneurial companies on the line, even where there are limited opportunities for advancement, as we used to say, up the ladder, we need to look for places to learn and places where people can use their skills and strengths on projects. There's still plenty of room for growth without necessarily going up the ladder. So this is going to lead us into our next poll here. At your company, to what degree do you provide challenge and support? Now the key word here is and support. Not just challenge, not just let's throw them in the pool and see if they can swim, but how much challenge and support do you provide? 5 is, wow, we excel in the area. 4, we're pretty good at it. 3, well, there are some places in the company when we're good at it, but not all places. 2, few opportunities for growth, and 1, it's rare. Now remember, that's challenge and support for stretch goals.
All right, and another half a minute to answer that. Just when you're going through your conversation, it just makes me think about some of the interactions I've had in terms of customer service, just in the traveling that somebody like you and I does without speaking, and I get to see it from all different types of vendors, where it's the rental car place, and so much of what I think you're talking about is a decision made not just by leadership, but by that manager every day. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm going to go rent a dollar rental car, there's a lot of variance from one location to another location, and that variance is not driven by corporate, it's driven by the manager at that location. And so I think that this really just keeps going down the line until the responsibility finally stops with that individual. So while it's important for the company to provide challenge and support for stretch goals, I think it's just as important for the employee to challenge and stretch themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Not wait for the other guy to do it for you.
Yeah, I think we call that ownership.
Yep.
We're all looking for that. We're all looking for that. I do think it needs to be coached a little bit.
Yep. So here's the results we have. 4% excel.
Ooh, good. Okay.
23 are pretty good at it. 52%, there are some places in the company. Now let's hope it's in their department. There are a few opportunities for growth, 20%.
Ooh.
And then we have that one company again on here that comes up with the 1% rare.
Interesting. Well, and you'll probably see that they're scoring low in every one of these areas then. Wow. Wow, that's very interesting. Once again, that bulge in the middle, that 52%, some places in the company are doing. This is where deliberate focus comes in, because and this is also of course a self-reflection exercise. So what can you do to help move yourself and the company up the ladder as a result of this?
And we've got a quick question. Let me ask.
Sure. We've
got a question for one, and it goes right. What is the role of the leader? Is happiness only found or best found through top-down efforts? What we were just talking about.
The answer there is happiness can be found at any level. Even if you're in an oppressive job that you don't like, you can still make a choice to focus on the few things about that job for which you are grateful. And maybe it's just having a job.
Well, you know, I can think of It's a Beautiful Life, and you can't get that movie.
Yeah,
You can't think more of an oppressive situation than that, and he made a choice to be happy, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So it's at every level. There's the personal level of I choose to be happy no matter what's going on around me because I'm going to look for the good everywhere. And there's the next level up, which is the manager that understands that he or she broadcasts emotions, and they sit in the car an extra few minutes in the morning and think about something that they appreciate, so then when they walk in the office, they're vibrating that positive attitude. So it can happen at every level, and I'm going to add this, it can happen at any age. So start this with your kids really young, and it becomes easier to do. Unfortunately, we live in a world that's predominantly negative. So if we focus on watching the news and listening to yada, 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 and what's going on out there, there are a lot of negative conversations. And because of the way the body is programmed, we do have a negativity bias. It's easier to be negative than it is positive. So, all right, number 3. Provide a balance between stress and recovery, and that's what you were mentioning a little bit earlier. You know, even ancient techniques like meditation help a lot. I think one thing we have to understand is this idea of multitasking. Studies are proving that multitasking doesn't get more work done. In fact, accuracy rates on all tasks are going down, and stress-related illnesses are going up because the brain isn't built to multitask. So we really have to understand that we're dealing with human beings, not just human doings. You know, we've got to help them understand where it's appropriate to try to multitask and where not. And we really can't manage time, but we can manage energy. So energy is the fundamental currency of high performance and excellence. It's really about energy. When we work from our strengths, we create more energy. When we work from our weaknesses and we're constantly having to deal with not being supported, we actually deplete energy. So when you think about it, every thought, feeling, activity, or behavior has an energy cost. All day long, you've got energy gains and energy drains. Becoming more aware of where your energy is going and where it's spent frivolously will help us manage it. And of course, if you are teaching meditation in business, the word mindfulness comes up a lot. Meditation is a mindful way to recover. Tal Ben-Shahar, who teaches this at Harvard, he talks about creating restorative niches during the day. I call them islands of sanity, you know, where people can work on a single project for an hour without being disturbed by email or others. He recommends small bits of time where people can relax, renew, or rejuvenate before taking on the next thing. You know, building a ritual, a 15-minute walk at lunchtime, a place in the office, a quiet spot in the office where people can go and meditate, a quiet cup of tea. There are small things we can do during the day to bring our energy back. And the more mindful we become, the more we are able to, for instance, you know, simply take a deep breath once in a while before picking up that phone for another phone call. The more mindful we become of how we react as opposed to respond to things, the better chance we're going to get between that balance between stress and recovery. And of course, our third poll, to what degree does your company address and experience this stress and recovery rhythm? So not just stress, but stress and recovery. Yeah, we have a big project due, but then when the big project's due, we can relax a little bit. So number 5, we've achieved a nice balance or rhythm. Number 4, hey, we're working with some good tools and we're getting there. Number 3, we're getting a better handle on it. Number 2, it's a roller coaster. And number 1, we're burnt out and stressed. Don, I have you there?
But I didn't know you wanted me to answer. Launch this now. We normally save this. Just so you know, I normally save the third polling question towards the end. That's the way our HRCI wants us to do it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. I'm sorry. I put it in here.
We can ask it now. What the heck? Nobody's, as long as nobody rats me out to HRCI, we're fine.
Would you like, if you'd like to wait for this one, we could do it. We could do it later.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's just do it. You gotta be like Gumby in this business, you know.
I think you got to be like Gumby in any business these days. I just hope that's still a useful cultural reference. Does everybody? My granddaughter has a Gumby.
That's just to remind you of it. Oh man. All right, this will be the third and final poll, you folks. And I'm telling you, it's a roller coaster here. Is definitely in the lead.
Yeah, this is something that most companies do not have a handle on right now.
But to a certain extent, you can't avoid some roller coaster. There's just events that happen that are going to be, by their nature, more stressful. The holiday season, I don't care how much meditation
absolutely.
we do, it by its nature tends to be more stressful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then all the stuff stops and we actually enjoy each other for 3 days. That's great. You know. All right, so let's close that and share the results. And we've got 6% say they've got a nice balance of rhythm. 7% say we're actively working with tools. 27% say we're getting a better handle on it. And then you've got the lead of the roller coasters at 49%. And we're burnt out and stressed at 10%.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we can see where the work needs to be done there, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's something we haven't addressed. It's like everybody, my experience being a consultant says that, again, the attitude is you got to deal with your own stress. You know, it's up to you as a person to figure out how to deal with it. Don't expect me as a company to address it. And I think that is part of what needs to shift.
And I think, just as an aside, I think one of the realities is, given what happened during the recession, I think everybody said, "I don't want to hear about your stress. I've got my own stress." You know, you want to talk stress, and so look, just I don't care how stressed you are, just get busy if you want to help us survive through this. And so I think there's a large residual of that.
I agree with you, and I do think it's time we address it, because you know what? It doesn't cost much to address it. It's not something that's going to go. It's not like putting in an HRIS system. You know, it's a different kind of things. There are things we can do to encourage people to. All we need to do is teach them, and we can also set up some situations where people feel good. For instance, just the expression of authentic appreciation for what it does in the body helps. So if we can learn to listen more deeply and give meaningful feedback to people, you know, William James said that the deepest human need is that for appreciation. And I think when leaders develop, it's an art to listen deeply and to give back that feedback and appreciation and affirmation. People feel better. When they feel better, they get more energy, and then it's easier for them to come to work. You know, we know that behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated, but unfortunately we tend to use this in connection with money, and it's not about using money to motivate, because as soon as people get a little more of it, they spend it. So the kind of currency that I'm talking about is that emotional currency, that feeling of appreciation. So you could even do that right now. In fact, why don't we do that right now? If we all just for one moment take a breath and just sit with that breath real quietly. And now bring to mind something that you deeply appreciate. And even if you stay there for just about 30 seconds, you're going to begin to change the biochemistry of the body from the chemicals of fear, which is, according to this poll, what we're living on over here, to the chemicals of calm. So there are some very simple things that we can do to create a positive physical response in the body and change the heart rate variability of the body. When we do that, it begins to change the brain waves as well. And when those chemicals change, we begin to experience a more positive state, which has positive benefits for the body. So I believe in creating little rituals for gratitude and appreciation. So one of them might be to start a meeting with the question, what is it, go around the room and tell us one thing that you're grateful for since the last time we met. And I like the ritual at the end of a meeting. I call it a circle of appreciation. At the end of the meeting, reserve 2 minutes to go around the table and say, pick one thing out of the meeting today that you really, really appreciated. When you do that, you actually change the heart rate variability. There's a specific vibration in the body of appreciation. And as you can see, that this is from the Institute of HeartMath in Boulder Creek, California, and I've studied out there a number of times. There's a real difference in the heart rate variability between frustration or even active work and appreciation. So when we go to appreciation, we create a different vibe and a different wavelength for people. Number 5, create connection to people and a purpose. We call that a cause. Marty Seligman's last book is called Flourish, and he talks about the 5 pillars of happiness: pleasure, engagement, relationship, meaning, and accomplishment. Very, very important, all important in business. So when we get connected to something bigger, something outside of ourselves, we create more meaning. There's more excitement. There's more pulling towards that compelling why. Not, I also get the opportunity to see a lot of companies' mission statements. No one is particularly motivated by a mission statement that says, we're going to be the best in our industry. And that's mostly what I see. We're going to be the best in our industry. And recently, one of my clients who had a mission statement that used to be, provide the best service at the best cost, and there was no emotional component there in the healthcare field. They have decided that their role has changed, and they created a cause. They're a medical concern that deals with only people over the age of 65 with Medicare patients. And they have decided that it's time for them to change the way health care gets delivered to our nation's greatest generation. And they're able to have a lot of emotion around that. And the kinds of things they're doing are just absolutely fantastic. Even though it's medical care they're delivering, they make Thanksgiving dinners and have their patients come in. There's so much emotion around it. It's fabulous. So besides creating a compelling why, Gallup does tell us that when we have friends at work, we're more likely, 7 times more likely to be engaged when we have a best friend at work, when we have people we can talk to. So give people the opportunity to cultivate friendships and connect inside and outside the organization. So we got that sense of connection and belonging that we're taking care of. Daniel Goleman said in his book, Primal Leadership, the fundamental task of leaders, we argue, is to prime good feelings in those they lead. In its root, then, the primary job of a leader is emotional. Great leadership works through emotion, and there's, I think, no one that exhibits that better than Tony Hsieh, who his company used to be powered by service. When he started reading about and understanding the power in the applied positive psychology, everything began to change, and he now delivers happiness. And his whole organization is behind it, and we've all seen what they've done in their culture. And that partially is because it's time, absolutely time, for us to shift from the power over cultures to this idea of power with. The power truly has shifted from the people who sell to the people who buy. The customers are truly in charge. So the newest shift in the model has to be internally, from power over to power with. And I think the first step to that is we need to really believe in our employees' brilliance. The old my way or the highway isn't going to work anymore. If we really want to engage and involve our employees, we have to believe in them, not just ourselves. So power with is a much more, I think, organic model. It sees the whole organization as a system where everything is related, and it strives for that sense of intrinsic motivation coming from the inside. And in my training, I've had the opportunity to work with and learn from a lot of people, and I was once in a program with Dr. Olaf Isaacson, and someone raised their hand and said, Dr. Isaacson, how do we motivate people? And he stood up there and looked out and he said, we don't motivate people. People motivate themselves. But what we can do is create an environment where people feel good about themselves in our presence. And I think that's a very important thing to sit with. How do we create the kind of environment where people feel good about themselves in our presence? I think in today's business, we have to include people in decision making and let them know that we value their contribution. And more than anything, and again, because of my experience of working with executives, this I think is the hardest part, is to master the art of letting go and let other people make mistakes. Because we all know that you probably do it better than anybody else there. We all know that you probably have more experience than the rest of your staff. But the art of delegation, the art of letting go, the art of letting go of ego, the art of letting go of the need to be right, the art of letting go of this same old, well, we've always done it this way and we've been really successful. That's the toughest part, the toughest part of the shift. But I will encourage you to use that as a mantra. Let go, let go. And then use some positive leadership practices, which I'm going to talk about for just a little bit as we end, and then we'll take some questions. But let me start by saying this because, you know, I get misunderstood a lot. So let me say this right here, is that there is a place for negative thinking in business, and there are many positive uses for pessimism. Negative emotions do play an important role in helping us navigate around danger. And there really are times when it's very important to look at what's wrong of things rather than what's right about things. But too much of that kind of thinking, negative thinking, narrows our outlook and perspective and physiologically puts us in a state of contraction where creativity and innovation become impossible. So we have to honor the place that negativity has in business, but not worship it. So in business, by the way, as in marriage, if you want to flourish, you need to use that 5-to-1 ratio, that 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction. 5 times more time in positive frames rather than negative 1. 5 times more positive feedback than corrective feedback. 5 times more appreciation, acknowledgement, celebration, praise, you know, looking at what's right and what's strong in the organization. And this is truly a shift. Most of us have been trained as leaders to say, okay, yeah, he's doing really good over here, but behold the underlying truth. He's weak in this area. Let's fix that. That's a hard pattern to break. If we focus on people's strengths, we can employ their strengths to work with their weaknesses. I believe that our brains are structured in such a way that questions are what change our focus. So I'd like to offer you some asset-focused questions. I have a little asterisk there to remind me to tell you that I offer a list of 2 pages of appreciating, empowering, and asset-focused questions for your use. If you just want to send me an email, JoAnna at returnonhappiness.com. I'll get them out somewhere between now and the first of the year. Asset-focused questions like, what's possible? What's strong? What's called for now? What's the gift in this? How can I use this? What can we learn from this? What's going well and why? What can we appreciate here? So if we begin to shift how we ask, instead of, hey, what went wrong here and who's to blame, when we begin to shift how we ask questions, we automatically shift our focus from the negative to the positive, and that's the easiest way to do it. And then, of course, be open-minded and curious about what you find out, as opposed to being judgmental. So there are many, many positive leadership practices that can help us. And our intention is to create more positive capacity. And that's our organization's ability to experience positive emotion, more positive emotion. Not all of it being happiness, but positive emotion. So that increased positive capacity tells us that we're increasing profits in every area of our company, even the likelihood of promotion at work by 40% when there's more happiness in the business, accuracy on task by 19%, sales going up, and again, the risk going down because safety levels go up, wellness goes up, health claims go down, absenteeism goes down, theft goes down. So there's profits in every area of the company when we deliberately create more of this happiness. And I love this Ken Blanchard quote. I heard it years ago. Profit is the applause you get from taking care of your customers and taking care of people. There are many, many benefits of positive emotion. They make you smarter. They make you healthier. They make you more socially adept. They even now, we know, make you wealthier. When you're in the state of positive emotion, it widens your scope of attention. It gives you more choices. It increases your intuition. It increases your creativity. It simply improves your life. So there are many, many, many benefits of positive emotion. So if you come to work every day and say to yourself, it's my job to build emotional bank accounts with these folks, and listen for the goodness in them, affirm and acknowledge and appreciate that, give feedback on what's right and what's strong, you begin to build relationships. So briefly, the positive leader is someone who discovers and builds on relationships, builds that positive capacity internally and externally, is kind of always asking the question, what's possible? Is thinking about what can we do to flourish and thrive, always looking for a way to make meaning, skilled at managing and focusing energy, and as Don said earlier, slows down enough to be reflectful, thoughtful, and mindful, and deliberately creating positive capacity in the organization. Buckminster Fuller once said that relationship is everything and everything is relationship, and I truly believe that we're all relationship managers. So that's really where we want to focus. So why don't we take questions, and then I'll repeat that email address for anybody who's interested in getting a list of empowering and appreciating and asset-focused questions.
All right. So first of all, the first question was if you could repeat what the acronym PERMA stands for.
Yes, pleasure, engagement, relationship, meaning, and accomplishment. And you might think of that like 5 roads to happiness. I like to think of it that way. There's all these different paths to get to a robust sense of well-being, and those are the 5.
Now, it's interesting. One of the books I like is a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. I don't know if you're familiar with it. One of the things that ends up happening is I think that our self-talk is that I'm caring, my self-talk is that I'm encouraging, my self-talk is that I'm happy, but that's not necessarily what we manifest. Okay, so especially when we're stressed, we can be the happiest caring person who nitpicks everybody to death around us. So one of the things I like to have people do is check their head. Okay, look, I say I'm going to be a happy person today. Well, did I come out of this experience exhibiting that, or it was just a thought that stayed inside of me?
Well, it would be interesting to ask others as well how they see you. Do you see me as a happy person?
You've got to be very comfortable in your skin to ask that question, don't you?
I know.
Most people are going to be afraid of the answer they might get.
I got accused just the other night of not being happy. I looked up and I said, you're right. At this moment, I'm so tired that I'm not really thinking about happiness. I just want to go to sleep.
I'll be happy tomorrow. Will this training be available again? Yes. In fact, we record it. It stays on there, and I'll show you when we're finished how you can see the recording. So I will show you that. One of the things that you mentioned, which is kind of funny, and I don't want to let it just fly by, is heart rate variability. I've got my heart rate variability monitors, and I don't know that there's a better indication of your health than your heart rate variability. In other words, can your heart be at rest, truly at rest, and then in a fight or flight moment gets way, way up there where necessary, and then come way back down to rest again. So there is perhaps no better benchmark of your personal health than heart rate variability. So when JoAnna talked about that, it really made me click, and it's, any of you interested in this type of thing, just start Googling heart rate variability, and you'll see a lot of the conversation around it. A lot of
Don,
these.
do
Yeah.
you have you said you had monitors. I have a little monitor that goes on my iPhone, so that I can.
I was working with Dave Asprey stuff, the Bulletproof Executive, and the biohackers, and I have an EM Wave 2.
Ah, good.
Okay.
And it's so simple now, truly, for maybe $99. It's a great biofeedback device to see how quickly you can get yours up and down. And the quickest route, and this is what's so crazy, is that it's so simple. The quickest route is through appreciation. The other trick that I use a lot, and of course we don't have a camera here, is I ask people to take their right hand and put it on their heart before they go into appreciation, because that generally will start the flow of oxytocin in the body as well. So now you've got your hormones changing. You're moving yourself to that wonderful state of appreciation, which begins to change everything. And once there, what's really interesting is the brain begins to open up, because now your right hemisphere and your left hemisphere are having a conversation. So the physiology is what got me hooked on this, is that it's not just about, are you happy or are you not happy? It's, are you in the positive state in your body that pumps out all the good hormones like the endorphins and the dopamine and all the good stuff, or are you in the negative state in your body that are pumping out the hormones that are fight or flight hormones that can begin to eat away at your organs with stress and shut down your ability to heal? And I think that's where I got hooked on this whole thing, is that we have self-healing mechanisms, but we don't have access to them when we're under stress. So any way that we can reduce that stress or reframe that stress so that it becomes exciting and fabulous, we are able then to change the biochemistry of the body and be healthier. There's the optimists live 7 to 9 years longer than pessimists. So
that's because they want to live longer. They want to live longer. That's why.
That's true.
By the way, what JoAnna's talking about, your ability to, with these heart rate monitors, you can actually play games of saying, okay, I'm going to make myself agitated. You can watch the thing go up, and you can, okay, I'm going to calm myself down. You can watch it go down. It's very cool to see how you can actually manipulate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's so cool is when I first did this, was about 15 years ago, you had to go into a laboratory and they had to put sensors on your head, and you had to be all wired up. And here in the privacy of anywhere, you don't even need privacy. You can name the M Wave now, you can put right on your finger. I don't have that one.
Yep.
I have the one that hooks up to your ear. But it's pretty phenomenal. But you know what? It then puts all the responsibility on you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
My happiness is up to me, and I think that's what we want people to take away, is that your happiness is up to you. And when you're happier, when you're experiencing more positive emotions, for those people that don't like the word happy, when you're experiencing more positive emotions, that's what you're broadcasting. And emotions are contagious. And that's the first thing that I try to teach leaders, is that emotions are contagious, and you have a choice as to what you spread around.
Are there people who don't like the word happy?
Yeah, there are, and
Do they consider it frivolous?
Marty Seligman is one of them now. Yeah, because it's been trivialized with a little yellow face. Because there are many people that find their happiness through the path of engagement, or sports, or accomplishment, or the rich landscape of relationships, and they're not much on the pleasure, Okay. And there are some people that go, I think when most people think about happiness, they think about pleasure, as opposed to being deeply engaged in a project or a hobby or work. But work is a path to happiness if you're using your strengths, and if you keep yourself challenged, and if you've got that positive reinforcement, either through your own self-talk or through others. And you are so right about that self-talk stuff, because I found that I would have major accomplishments in my life, but not give myself the recognition. And there's not a lot of other people around to do it for me. So I had to learn how to do that. So at the end of every week, I have a journal that I write in at the end of every week so that I can write down what my accomplishments were and what I've completed, what I've deleted, what I've created, and whether or not I've given myself some soul food during the week. And I keep track of it because it's a way of patting myself on the back.
Last comment here from one of the listeners said that they'll often walk around the office and remind other workers to smile.
You know what? As simple as that, because when you smile, it kicks off a biochemical response, and smiling itself can change the chemicals in your body. So, yeah, put a smile on your face.
That's right. All right, so it's JoAnna, awesome. You even mentioned Bucky, but that's another conversation for another day.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. This is my favorite thing to do, and if
I can
people
tell.
want access can you tell? I talk a little fast. I'm sorry about that. If anybody wants access to those questions, it's JoAnna at returnonhappiness.com. And at any other time of year, I would say you'd have them within 24 hours, but in honoring the family on the West Coast, who I don't get to see very often, you know, I got some meatballs to make and stuff like that, you know. So,
you can put the happy in the food, you know.
We're going to, well, we do. I'm Italian, so there's a lot of happy that goes into the food. So.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. As always, I'm going to finish up, and I want you folks to see where the tool is stored. Okay, so I'm going to show my screen now. And we're back on HR That Works. So I know some of you are guests, okay? Whoever invited you can go back to that person. If you're interested in JoAnna invited you, interested about our program, we can let you know about that. Just contact us. But as we always do, say it with we did with Project Bloom that we just had on about the meditation. The PowerPoint and the video and the audio are all going to be here, and they'll be uploaded probably right after the 1st, because Dana, who manages all this, is now on vacation until the end of the year. So she's the one who'll get you your HRCI credits. You have to be patient until the beginning of the year. And this is where the recordings will be. And as always, JoAnna will send you a copy of the audio and the video as well if you want to put it up on your site.
And that would be great. That would be great. And that's returnonhappiness.com, because, you know, there is one.
Hey, thank you so very much, all of you. Merry Christmas. I know Hanukkah's already passed, whether it's Happy Kwanzaa or whatever you want to be happy about, please do it, including a Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2014. And JoAnna, thank you once again.
Oh, and thank you, Don, for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Take good care of yourself. Happy, happy, happy.
All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.